Hello and welcome back to my Let's Build series. Today we're going to be continuing the Coliseum build that I started last week. We're going to be working on structure today, so hopefully by the end you'll start to see that half the Coliseum is starting to take shape. So what you can see me doing here is lowering the wall, adding in blocks to make sure that everything, ends at the same height. Then I went round the back and I also made sure that the back height was the same as well. After cleaning all that stuff up, I decided to fill in a layer of sand at the bottom here. I did that because I wanted to represent roughly where the arena space was going to be. I mean, we know we have a huge circle, but we had nothing really to visualize that it was going to be an arena space. Now, I'm not saying that the final thing is going to actually have a sand floor. I may well put a floating island in there or something else a bit more funky, but at the moment, it's just going to be a sand floor as placeholder. I came to the outside of the build and I decided to lay down a layer of green grass just to make sure I knew where the floor would be. And then again, I played around with the heights of the walls just to make sure that everything was looking really good from the outside height-wise. This clip shows probably this week's most important part, and that is that I wanted to fill in these kind of sloped areas of the Coliseum that would basically be the seating areas. These areas need to be staggered so that different levels raise up in a sort of gradual slope, and making sure that that slope was right was really tricky. I had to play around a lot, and I had to keep playing around. I might even still keep playing around after this episode to make sure that I get the right curves, because I've got to also think about the seating and how I want the seating to fit in here, because I want to the plan is to actually use chairs and benches as seating, and I don't know if I can do that with this kind of curve as effectively as I'd hoped. So I might have to change it, but for now, this is a good way of visualizing roughly how I want the Coliseum to be shaped. So here you can see, this is what it looked like when it was finished, and I ended up with these really large diagonals, and I decided I didn't like those diagonals, so I was going to go in and I was going to spend quite a bit of time making these sort of curves more curved. You can see me cutting into the top there, just to get that curve a bit better, because I thought that it would look nicer if it was a more rounded curve, and in the long run, I think it does look better. You're going to see that in a moment when I skip forward to it, but for now, you can just sort of see me changing these very large diagonals into much more of a curved shape. So, here we are. This is what it looks like now. It sort of creates a much sort of nicer curved area. Obviously, because of the way there's an impeding block to the left of the screen, you can't quite see the full nature of the curve. Here's just another look at it, slightly lower down. So now it was time to come to this central piece that I'd worked on in the first episode. I brought up the walls to make them a lot higher, and I started to play around with this area. This area is going to be a raised sort of seating area for richer folk, for, more powerful people, nobles perhaps, rich merchants, and this is going to give you better seating, better quality seating, and a much better view of the arena overall. I played around with stairs and entrances and, the kind of slopes I wanted. And of course, the building part behind it, I may be building that up into some form of a tower or larger structure. So over here I started to build this block square structure. At the moment I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to use it for, but I think it's going to serve the purpose of being a doorway into the arena for the fighters or the beasts that will be entering. I also thought maybe it could have a tower on it, or rise up a little bit, or just be a bit more decorative, and if nothing else it can be a cool balcony for people to stand on and look out over the arena. So now I've come back to the nicer seating area, where we're going to be having our richer people, and I decided to overhaul it slightly and give it a bit of a new look. So as you can see here, I'm just filling in the sides now to make sure it looks like a proper structure and we don't have these large holes throughout the build. I'm now going to copy that square structure over onto the other side, where it's going to be a door that looks opposite to the other door, so you can imagine that the two combatants will enter from either end and meet in the middle. It was now time for me to copy what I'd done in the other corner into this corner, so you can see me zipping backwards and forwards just to check that my patterns are the same on both sides so that I got the curves looking the same. This took me a long time, so I'm not going to be showing you all of it, I'm going to be cutting, but you get the idea. I built these layers and then I filled them in. So this is half of the Coliseum shown. I haven't yet worked on the other side. These two parts are now looking similar. Here's a side shot so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so now we've come back to these weird square structures, and I decided that maybe I'd put some towers on these, or at least some smaller, like, raised up building parts. So I started to map these out. They're just squares of 10 by 10. And then we come back to that main structure, and I just decided to make it a bit taller because we're going to be building it up higher into some kind of grand spire maybe, or some large building that looks cool. I came to the front here and I decided to thicken it a bit because I thought I could have a doorway here too. So I played with the idea of having a doorway here, and I knocked a hole in the wall, and then you can see sort of like a large hole where it's going to be a gateway. So there might be 3 gateways into this arena. I don't know if I'll put another block on the opposite edge to this, because I don't want 4 entrances to my arena. So maybe the whole other half of the arena will just be one giant curve of seats. I added in some stairways and a flatter platform as well. But here's a shot of the arena now with the mapped out tower areas and the changed richer seating area. Now, for the end of this episode, I've decided to come back to the very front of the Coliseum that we worked on at the end of the first episode, and I added in a bit of white stone. I changed up the windows a little bit, and then I added in more wood so that it had a more continuous theme throughout. And now we've risen up, and that's going to be it for this episode. I've worked quite hard on the structure, and we've got half of the structure laid out now. So in the next episode, we'll hopefully be working on the other half of the Coliseum and maybe working up some of these towers and structures that I've laid out. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.